You feel that your life has stopped in time. Everyone around you seems to move forward, to achieve, to conquer. And you? Stuck, locked, waking up every day with that sensation that nothing changes. You work, pay bills, sleep, wake up, and repeat. And deep down, very deep down, a voice tells you, I was not born for this. Pay attention to what I'm going to tell you now, because this video will show you the exact reason why your pain has stagnated, and why, as of today, the clock of your victory has already begun to turn. Stay until the end. This here will change the way you see everything. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How long has it been since you felt you were in the same place? I am not talking about an address. I am talking about your emotional, financial, and spiritual life. How long has it been since you looked in the mirror and no longer recognized who was there? 6 months? 1 year? 5 years? Perhaps more. I know it hurts. I know you have already tried, you have already prayed, already asked, already cried hidden in the bathroom. You have already researched courses, already started a diet on Monday, already promised yourself that this time it would be different. And it was not. You started with strength, with will, with that fire in your eyes. It lasted a week, perhaps 2. And then, without noticing, you returned to the same place, the same routine, the same tiredness, the same emptiness. And then comes the guilt. And guilt is of the worst kind because it speaks softly. You have no discipline. You are weak. Everyone succeeds, except you. And guilt comes accompanied by shame. And shame comes accompanied by silence, because no one knows that inside you are screaming. At Sunday lunch with the family, you smile. In the WhatsApp group, you send stickers. At work, you say everything is fine. But when the bedroom door closes, it is another story. But I need to tell you something that perhaps no one has told you yet. The problem was never you. The problem is the clock that stopped inside of you, and no one taught you how to fix it. Now, before I explain to you what this clock is and how it jammed, I need you to understand one thing. This video is not empty motivation. It is not a pretty phrase to stick on the refrigerator. Here we go deep. I am going to show you what neuroscience has already proven about how the brain locks in cycles of pain. I will show you what ancestral spirituality teaches about energetic stagnation, and I will give you a practical path to unlock this. So if you have made it this far, do me a favor. Leave a like now. This simple gesture helps this video reach more people who are also stuck in this cycle. Agreed? Let us start with the symptom, because that is where most people feel the impact first. I call this symptom life in automatic mode. You know that feeling that your days are all the same? You get up, drink coffee, sometimes you don't even feel like eating, but you eat out of obligation. Go to work, return, watch something on your phone to try to distract yourself, and sleep. And the next day, the same thing. It seems someone pressed the repeat button on your existence. And the worst part, you perceive this happening. You are conscious that you are stuck. But knowing you are stuck and not being able to get out is the cruelest part. It is like being inside a car with the engine running, but without being able to engage the gear. You spend gasoline, heat the engine, make noise, but you do not leave the spot. And it is not a lack of intelligence. It is not a lack of capacity. Often it is exactly the opposite. The most sensitive, deepest, most conscious people are the ones who suffer most from this, because they know they could be living another way. They feel they have something great inside them, but they cannot access it. A survey conducted by the Locomotiva Institute in partnership with the mental health company Zen Club, released in 2023, showed that more than 70% of adult Brazilians feel emotionally exhausted. 70%. This means that if you are in a room with 10 people, 7 are going through this. And the most frightening datum, the majority of these people are between 35 and 55 years old. That is, they are people who have already worked a lot, already built families, already given up dreams to handle obligations, already accumulated responsibility, and now feel that life has charged a price that no one warned would come. And do you know what most of these people do? They compensate. They buy things they do not need, they eat too much, they drink on the weekend to relax. They spend hours scrolling the Instagram feed seeing the lives of others. These are forms of modern anesthesia. You are not living. You are anesthetizing yourself to endure surviving. And it is exactly there where the danger resides. Because when you enter automatic mode, you stop feeling. And when you stop feeling, you stop desiring. And when you stop desiring, you stop creating. And when you stop creating, you stop living. Your body is here, but your soul is frozen at some moment in the past. This is the clock that stopped. Perhaps your clock stopped when you lost someone. Perhaps it stopped when that betrayal happened. Perhaps it stopped when you were humiliated at work. Or when you discovered that disease. Or when the money ran out and no one extended a hand. The specific moment varies, but the mechanism is the same. A pain so strong that your emotional system decided to lock there, to freeze, because moving forward at that moment seemed impossible. And now I'm going to explain to you why this happens from the point of view of the brain. Because when you understand the mechanism, everything changes. There is a structure in your brain called the cerebral amygdala. It has nothing to do with the tonsils in the throat. This amygdala is a kind of internal alarm that detects danger. When you go through a traumatic experience, through a great loss, through intense emotional pain, the amygdala triggers a signal that basically screams, "Danger! Stop everything! Protect yourself!" And what happens? Your brain enters survival mode. In this mode, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, creativity, decision-making, has its activity reduced. It literally slows down the rhythm. It is as if your brain said, "It is not the time to dream. It is the time to survive." And do you know what is worse? If the pain is not processed, if the emotion is not named, welcomed, and integrated, your brain maintains this state of alert as if the danger were permanent. That is why you feel you are stuck. Because neurologically, a part of you is still in that moment of pain. It is still in that day. The body aged, the calendar turned, the years passed, but your nervous system, it is still there, reacting as if the threat were present. And here enters something powerful that spirituality has taught for millennia, and that science is only now beginning to confirm. Many spiritual traditions speak about the concept of soul fragmentation, the idea that when we pass through a very painful experience, a part of our vital energy, of our essence fragments. It is as if a piece of who you are remained stuck in that event in that time. The Brazilian indigenous peoples, for example, have healing rituals that involve exactly this, bringing back the fragments of the soul that were lost, reconnecting the person with their wholeness. And it is beautiful to perceive that modern neuroscience, when it speaks of non-integrated traumatic memories, is describing exactly the same phenomenon with other words. If you are identifying with this, write here in the comments, "My clock stopped, but today it starts turning again." I want to read each of these comments because each person who writes this phrase is making a declaration of intention to the universe, and a declaration of intention is the first step of change. Now let us go to the part that few content creators have the courage to speak of, the cause behind the cause, because it is not enough to know that the amygdala locked. It is not enough to know that there was a fragmentation. The question is, why did you stay so long like this without being able to get out? And the answer in most cases is only one. You learned to live with the pain. That is right. You adapted to the suffering. And when pain becomes routine, it stops seeming like pain. It becomes normal. It is just like this. It becomes, everyone goes through this. There is a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It was discovered by psychologist Martin Seligman in the 1960s. He performed experiments, quite controversial today, with dogs. The animals that learned they could not escape a painful situation simply stopped trying. Even when the cage door was opened, they did not leave, because their brain had already decided, it is no use. And do you know what happens with millions of Brazilians every day? The same thing. The door is open, but you do not leave, not because you are lazy, not because you are weak, but because your brain was trained by repeated pain to believe that there is no way out, that it is not worth trying, that life is just that and period, and Brazilian society reinforces this in various ways. Look at how we normalize phrases like, life is not easy for anyone. At least you have your health. There are people in much worse situations. These phrases, which seem inoffensive, are actually instruments of emotional anesthesia. They teach the person to swallow the pain without chewing, to accept stagnation as destiny. And when someone tries to leave this cycle, what happens? The environment around pulls them down. The family says you are traveling, friends say it is a phase, the spouse thinks it is a midlife crisis, and you, who are already weakened, believe it, and you return to automatic mode. But I am here to tell you in plain letters, this is not your destiny, this is a pattern, and patterns can be broken. The door is open, and this time you will cross through. Now comes the most important part of this video, the solution. And I will divide it into 3 keys because there are 3 layers that need to be activated so that your clock works again. The first key is recognition. It seems simple, but it is the stage that most people skip. Recognizing means stopping running from the pain and looking at it face to face. It is not about ruminating. It is not about playing the victim. It is about saying, this happened to me, it hurt, and I have the right to feel this pain. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman from the University of California demonstrated in research that the simple act of naming an emotion, saying I am angry or I am sad, reduces the activity of the amygdala. It is as if giving a name to the monster diminished its power. When you recognize the pain, you take it out of the shadows and bring it to the light, and in the light, it begins to lose strength. So the practical exercise here is this. Take a notebook, it can be anyone, and write in your own words answering this question. When was it that my clock stopped? It does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be pretty. It only needs to be true. Write what happened, how you felt, what you lost on that day. This act of writing activates the prefrontal cortex and begins to reconnect the areas of the brain that were turned off by the trauma. It is science, and it is healing. The second key is forgiveness. And calm down, I know this word causes rejection in many people. When I speak of forgiveness, I am not telling you to accept the unacceptable. I am not telling you to pretend it did not hurt. Forgiveness, in the perspective I bring here, is letting go of the weight that is not yours. Think with me. When someone hurt you who remained carrying that pain, you, the person who did you harm, followed their life. They might be laughing now, they might be sleeping peacefully. And you, waking up at dawn with a tight chest, reliving the scene, losing vital energy with something that already happened and that cannot be changed. To forgive is to say, I refuse to carry this suitcase, it is not mine. It is an act of liberty. It is returning to the universe what does not belong to you. And spirituality is very clear about this. While you hold the grudge holds you, and the clock does not turn. There is a phrase I heard from an old Benzedera in the hinterlands of Minas Gerais that remained marked in my memory. She said it like this: a stored grudge is a spell we cast against ourselves. Think about that. The grudge is not hurting the one who hurt you. It is corroding you inside. It is consuming the energy that should be used to build your new phase. And I know that forgiving certain things seems impossible. I know there is pain that cuts deep. Abuse, abandonment, betrayal, the premature death of a loved one. I am not simplifying this, but I need to tell you, forgiveness is not an event. It is a process. It is not something that happens in a snap. It is something one practices, day after day, a little at a time, like removing a knife from the body slowly, with care, so as not to cause more damage. In Japan, there is a concept called Ho'oponopono, which is actually a Hawaiian practice that gained world popularity. There are 4 simple phrases: I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you, I am grateful. These phrases, repeated with intention, activate an internal process of emotional cleansing. Many people in Brazil already practice this and report profound transformations. Science may not have a complete explanation for this, but the experience of millions of people cannot be ignored. And if it works, it deserves respect and attention. And I will give you a practical exercise of forgiveness to do today. Close your eyes. Visualize the person who hurt you or the situation that locked you. Look at this scene as if you were an observer, no longer the victim, and say mentally, I recognize the pain this caused me, but I choose to no longer be its prisoner. I let go. I free myself. Breathe deeply 3 times and feel the weight leaving your shoulders. It may seem strange the first time, But repeat this for 7 days and tell me in the comments what changed. Now, if this content is making sense to you so far, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. I post videos every week exactly about this type of content. Real personal development without stalling, with depth. And the algorithm only shows it to those who really subscribe and activate notifications. The third key, and this is the one that will truly move you, is the symbolic action of beginning again. I call this turning the hand. See, your brain is a machine of patterns. It likes repetition. It feels safe in the known, even if the known is suffering. Therefore, to leave the cycle, you need a concrete gesture that functions as a milestone, a before and after, something that your brain registers as it changed, now it is different. Or it can be something large or something apparently small. It can be changing the path you take to work. It can be donating that clothing that reminds you of a painful phase. It can be cutting your hair. It can be tidying that room of the house that became a storage for junk. It can be enrolling in something new. It can be a conversation you have been postponing for months. It can be simply going out to walk in a park you have never visited. I will give you a real example that marked me profoundly. A 48-year-old woman from Curitiba wrote to me saying that her clock had stopped 12 years ago when she lost her son in an accident. 12 years living in automatic. 12 years smiling on the outside and dying on the inside. She told me that, after watching content similar to this, she decided to do something that seemed small. She planted a tree in the backyard. She said that while she dug the earth, she cried as she had not cried in years. And that in that gesture of putting something new to grow, she felt she was giving permission to herself to grow again as well. Today, 3 years later, that tree already bears fruit. And so does she. What matters is not the size of the gesture, it is the meaning you give to it. When you perform a symbolic action with the intention of change, the brain registers this as a break in pattern. And a break in pattern is the beginning of neuroplasticity, the capacity of the brain to reorganize itself and create new neural pathways. It is as if the brain said, "Whoa, something different is happening. I need to pay attention. I need to adapt." There is a fascinating study published in the journal Neuron that shows that new experiences, even small ones, stimulate the production of dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation, pleasure, and reward. That is, when you break the routine with intention, your brain begins to receive the signal that life is changing. And it adapts to this new reality. And now I want to bring something that connects all of this in a very beautiful way. In spirituality, there is an idea that appears in practically all the traditions of the world. The idea that pain has a purpose. It is not punishment. It is not bad luck. It is not negative karma. Pain is a kind of portal. Think of nature. The seed needs to rupture to sprout. The caterpillar needs to dissolve entirely inside the cocoon to become a butterfly. The diamond only forms under extreme pressure. Gold only purifies in the fire. The pain you felt and that you still feel did not come to destroy you. It came to reconstruct you into a stronger version, more lucid, more connected with who you really are. And there is something I observe with great frequency. The people who pass through the greatest pains are exactly the ones who develop the greatest capacity to help others. It is as if suffering had opened in them a channel of compassion that did not exist before. There is a phrase in spiritual traditions that says, "The wounded healer is the most powerful of all," because he does not speak of theory. He speaks of experience. He looks into the eyes of the one who is suffering and says with truth, "I know how it is. I went through this. I came out." Perhaps this is your calling. Perhaps your pain is not just something to be overcome, but something to be transformed into purpose, into a mission, into a reason to help those who are going through the same. How many people around you are stuck in the same cycle and need someone to show that there is a way out? I know it is difficult to see this when you are in the middle of the storm, when the account is in the red, when the marriage is hanging by a thread, when the body hurts, when loneliness tightens. When you live in a large city, and even surrounded by millions of people, you feel like the loneliest human being on the planet. When Sunday night arrives, and the anguish of Monday already begins to tighten the chest. But I need to tell you, The fact that you are watching this video now at this exact moment is not a coincidence. There is something inside of you that refuses to give up, that continues seeking, that continues believing even if the rational mind says there is no longer a way. This part of you is your essence. It is your deepest self. And it is this part that is telling you, the time has come, the clock will turn again. Now I want to propose something very concrete to you, so that this video is not just one more piece of content that you watched and forgot tomorrow. I want you to do this today before sleeping. Set aside 10 minutes. Only 10. Take the notebook I mentioned. Write the moment in which your clock stopped. Then write one thing you are going to do tomorrow, just one thing that symbolizes your beginning again. And lastly, write this phrase: I choose myself. Today, the time of my pain has ended. Today, the time of my victory begins. It may seem simple. It may seem like nonsense, but it is not. When you write an intention by hand, you simultaneously activate the motor cortex, the limbic system, and the prefrontal cortex. It is an act that integrates body, emotion, and reason. It is like reconnecting three wires that were disconnected. And when these three connect, something changes. Something moves inside. Writing by hand has a power that typing on a phone does not have. Because the body participates, the hand moves, the ink marks the paper. And what is marked on the paper begins to be marked on the soul. And it is not I who am inventing this. Studies from Indiana University and the University of Stavanger in Norway have already demonstrated that writing by hand activates areas of the brain related to memory, emotion, and learning in a much more intense way than typing. When you write "I choose myself" on a paper, your brain registers this as a real commitment, as a pact with yourself. I have received thousands of messages over the years from people who did exactly this. People who were at the bottom of the pit and started with a small gesture. A single mother from Recife who decided to return to studying after 15 years stopped. She told me she started with a notebook and a pencil, studying at dawn after putting the children to sleep. Today, she is graduated and works in the area she always dreamed of. A gentleman from Guyana, retired, who finally sought psychological help after carrying a depression alone for a decade. He said that the first step, calling the office and scheduling the appointment, was the most difficult of his life. More difficult than any day of heavy labor. But it was that step that saved his life. A teacher from Belém who had the courage to leave a marriage that was destroying her inside. She endured for 22 years because she thought it was an obligation, that it was until death do us part. Until she understood that the death the phrase mentions does not need to be physical. She was already dying inside every day. Real people, Brazilian people. People who wake up early, take crowded buses, face the SUS queue, raise children with little, and even so have within themselves a colossal strength. People like me and like you. And all these people had one thing in common. Their clock had stopped, and all decided at a certain moment that it was time to fix it. They did not wait for the perfect moment. They did not wait to have money. They did not wait for motivation to arrive. They decided. And the decision was the hand turning. I want to close with an image that perhaps will stay in your mind for a long time. Imagine an old clock, one of those on the wall with a pendulum. It has been stopped for years. Dust has covered the hands. No one believes it works anymore. But then, someone approaches, with care, cleans the glass, removes the dust from the hands, and with a touch, just one touch, pushes the pendulum, and the clock returns to beating. Tick, tock, tick, tock. That clock is you. The touch is your decision. The pendulum is your courage. And the sound of the tick-tock, that sound is your life happening again. You were chosen to watch this video. It is not a figure of speech, it is real. Out of millions of available contents, you clicked on this one. Something brought you here. And that something knows you are ready. Ready to leave the pain in the right place, in the past. And to begin living what is yours by right. The clock that stopped was not broken. It was waiting for you to have the courage to touch it again. Now it is up to you. Write in the comments what you're going to do tomorrow as your gesture of beginning again. I read every comment and I make a point of responding. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Sometimes we are the touch on someone else's pendulum. Subscribe, activate the bell, and I will see you in the next video. Because this journey does not end here. It is only beginning. The time of your pain has stagnated, but the time of your victory, that has started now.